What are some deep dark secrets your family members tried to hide from you, but you found out anyway? My mom poisoned me on at least 3 or 4 different occasions. On purpose. She would usually undercook some food hoping I would die of food poisoning, I'm guessing. No idea if she added anything. I got suspicious when I ate some salmonella chicken. I was young and starving, and later overheard her telling my brother not to eat them and that they were for me. She made a big batch of chicken, as she usually does. Some pieces seemed fine, so I ate them and not the funny-smelling ones. Still got sick, but I got better. According to my uncle on his deathbed, he claimed to have walked into the house with my father to find her drowning me in the tub. Then there was that one time she almost shot me. That was an accident though. I was chasing my dog because he got off the chain and rounded a corner just as she fired. We was outside, the dog ran down the street, the bullet hit a tree a few feet away from me. We caught him later and she shot him anyway and told me he died of fleas. I had to bury his bleeding corpse. Secret family in Japan. Apparently, my American dad left the army having unwittingly impregnated his Japanese girlfriend. She sent a letter but my grandma intercepted it and tore it up. He didn't find out for years. Now there's a whole mess of half Jewish, half Japanese folks related to me. When I was 17, my family finally decided to break it to me that my birth was the result of my mother cheating on my dad, that my dad bailed on me when I was 8 because he found out that he was born sterile, so it was impossible for me to be his, and that I am darker than everyone in my white family because I'm actually half Filipino. My mother owns over 10 buildings and didn't want to tell me in case I start becoming corrupt and money hungry. My uncle told me this. You have to ask yourself, which is more likely? Secretly rich mom. Troll uncle. Well, if she gives you a building on your wedding day, or brings you in as a business partner when you finish, then she's a hero for giving you a solid foundation. However, if she intends on hiding it from you forever, then that's shitty. My fish died and they replaced it with an identical one. My dog was sick but they did a procedure that made him all better. The only side effect was that he turned into a turtle. I may have 2 or 3 dead older brothers. I really don't know any more about it beyond that, as literally nobody in my family will talk about it with me. All I know is my grandmother on my mom's side has a picture sitting in the frame of a mirror that hangs on the wall of her house. This picture is of my grandmother and 2 boys who were between 5 to 8 years old that I'd never met or heard anybody talk about. The picture had always been in that exact location as long as I could remember. One day when I was young I was at her house, and happened to be looking at the picture while my grandmother was in the next room. She came in to see what I was doing since I had gotten quiet, and I asked her who the kids were in the picture with her. She told me they were my brothers, and that there was a third who wasn't in the picture. I then, thinking I had 3 older brothers, excitedly asked her where they were and why I had never met them. She just walked away and ignored the question. Any attempts after that to ask her or anybody else about the picture or the kids in it has been ignored in the same manner. I kinda gave up asking since even my parents would ignore it. Edit. To everybody saying I should dig deeper, there's a reason I don't want to. More than likely they died in a car accident caused by my alcoholic father that nearly left my mom paralyzed from the neck down. All she's ever told me about it is that it happened in her mid to late 20s, that her and my dad were in the car, my dad was drunk driving, and they had an accident. She woke up in the hospital unable to move with the doctors saying she'd probably be that way the rest of her life. The next morning when she awoke she found that she was able to move normally, but that her neck hurt like hell. To this day her neck still hurts, and when viewed from behind it almost appears as if one of her neck vertebrae was spun 90 degrees. Any doctor she's gone to has said the only cure would be to fuse the vertebrae, and she'd rather keep her range of motion and deal with the pain than have part of her neck fused. While it might be nice to know more about the lost brothers, if my inference is correct then I'd rather not force my mom to relive the possibility of her losing them thanks to my drunken prick of a father's carelessness. He's already put her in permanent pain. I don't wish to add to it. My mother didn't want kids so my father threatened to divorce her, filed the paperwork and everything, but she called him over one last time, and well here I am. Wouldn't really say this is anything dark. However, growing up I thought my family was awesome and we all loved each other. Shit was fantastic. However, I start to get into my teen years and this doesn't seem the case anymore. My dad's parents don't seem as close, and I began to feel like they looked down upon me and maybe my mom. Well, not long into my teens, I find out my dad's parents hate my mom. My nan wrote a letter to my dad before their wedding telling him not to marry her. So now I understand that actually, these big happy family events I thought were happening were all fake. Now, whenever my dad's parents are over, I can't help but thinking this is all fake shit. You all hate each other. Why are we bothering to pretend? I'm sure my grandparents love me, but I can't stand how false everything has become. When I was 18, I found out by accident that my mother was a meth user. Hit me hard like a truck, and about 3 weeks after, I found out the depression was too intense to carry. So I sit down and talk to my grandmother. As soon as my mouth opens, my throat tightened up, and the floodgates opened. I finally got it all out and asked. She was stunned. I didn't know, but I thought the way she had acted all my life was normal. My grandmother then tells me that my dad used it just as much. My dad died when I was 2 and I never knew him, especially that he was addicted to such a serious drug. Lastly, I've also learned that one of my 2 uncles is a frequent meth user. At least I know I will never touch that shit. My mom tried to commit suicide when she was 18 by jumping from a 2-story parking garage. She broke dozens of bones and is now littered with steel plates and screws under the skin. As a kid, I assumed that was just normal and eventually I would get some metal bones too, until my grandma asked how my mom's past injuries felt in the winter. She was asking if she had arthritis from the injuries, specifically. I had to ask my mom about it, and I have never viewed her the same since. As a 13-year-old that had just begun taking antidepressants and therapy, it hit the softest of soft spots. I used to think she was basically a pillar, being a single mom and working 2 jobs to scrape by and all that. Now she just seems so fragile. I'm sincerely terrified of her attempting again. I never want to see go like that. She deserves better. I don't know how old she is now, but I assume she is a lot older than 18. If she is still alive, she must have gotten rid of whatever made her try to commit suicide, and the fact that she is a single mother doing all she can for her family shows courage and loads of love for her family. I wouldn't worry too much, just remember to take care of her like she's taken care of you. I'm one of 4 siblings. My parents had planned on 3 kids, and the 4th was my mom's last-ditch attempt at a girl. She deceived my dad into thinking that she was still using contraception. She confided this to my ex-girlfriend, who was murdered, so I may be the only one who knows the secret, other than my mom. But life has a sense of humor. My youngest sibling turned out to be another boy. I'm sorry, but your ex-girlfriend was murdered? I don't understand how this doesn't concern more people. She couldn't let her live after knowing that secret. I was talking to my mom, and somehow we go to the topic of why I've never met anyone from her family. She explained that her older brother tried to rape her on several occasions and her mom and dad remained in denial about it, even in the face of evidence, forever after. She never told anyone else about it after her parents blew her off, including my dad. My grandma and step-grandpa had eloped long before their actual wedding ceremony. Apparently either of their families wanted them to get married because of a difference of race. My grandma was Filipino and my step-grandpa was white, so they waited a couple of years for everyone to approve. After my grandma passed away, I had to go through her things and found their certificate of marriage from Vegas, which was certified over a year before the actual day they got married with friends and family as witnesses. I had asked my parents about it, and they had no idea. Apparently neither did anyone else in the family. It doesn't seem like such a dark secret now, but since they kept it to themselves and took it to their graves, it must have been a pretty big deal to them. It's mostly just a sweet story to me, and as someone who had lost all faith in romance, it was kind of encouraging. My uncle was a huge drug dealer, and banking major money. He ended up getting killed by some cartel when I was 9. Family told me he died fishing. My uncle asked my family to help him move to another house. We figured he bought a new house and needed help moving, so we came over and started moving. We met him at the new house and unpacked some of his stuff that he had in his truck, like bed frames and such. This whole time I see the whole family except my aunt. We go back to the old house to grab the refrigerator and the rest of his things, when I find something odd about the whole moving experience. None of his belongings were packed, his fridge was full of food, none of the clothes were boxed up, and his house looked like a tornado passed through. Thinking it was just a foreclosure, I kept it to myself until I rode home with my parents. I tell my father what I suspect, and he finds it odd as well that my aunt was missing. Previously, my aunt has been convicted of a travel scam a few years back. I just recently Google searched her name to find that she's back at it, and got caught about 2 weeks ago. Not to mention that my uncle's house has also been foreclosed. I watched too many crime shows. I was definitely expecting you to tell us that your uncle murdered your aunt, and she was stashed in the fridge. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.